It's the end of the month. I read a ton of books in May and had some really good reads, but also some disappointments, so let's rapid fire through them. The first book I read is Your Blood, My Bones by Kelly Andrews. This is a young adult fantasy with gothic and horror elements. The main character drove me a little bit crazy, but I still really enjoyed the vibe and the plot of this book. I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read is a classic. It is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. While I did enjoy the message and the overall plot of the story, it did feel pretty dry to just sit down and read, so it took me a while, but overall I thought it was pretty enjoyable. I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett, which is book 2 in the Shadows of the Leviathan series. And while I did enjoy this book overall, I feel like it wasn't as good as the first book, so I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Fantasma, which is like a gothic fantasy romance, and I didn't really like this book. It felt like the language was way too modern for the setting of the book, and it just kept throwing me off. Thought the writing wasn't that great. I gave it 3 stars. Then I read the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy by Stephanie Garber. While I did enjoy the series overall, I thought the third book was a bit of a letdown. I gave the first and second books 4.5 stars and the third book 3.5 stars. Then I read Frostburn by Patricia Briggs, which is the 7th book in the Mercy Thompson series. This book was a lot of fun. It was really fast-paced. Mercy's pet gets kidnapped by a rogue government agency and she has to find a way to free them. I feel like I have a tendency to pick up the series when I feel myself going into a reading slump, and it always pulls me out of it. I love these books. I gave this 4 stars. Then I read an advanced reader copy of A Theory of Dreaming by Ava Reed, and I didn't enjoy this book. I feel like it wasn't necessary to write a follow-up story, especially if Ava Reed was going to take it the direction that she did. I gave this book 2 stars. Then I read The Art Thief by Michael Finkel, which is a non-fiction biography about a notorious art thief. This book was really fast-paced, very accessible. I really enjoyed it and highly recommend it. I gave it 4 stars. Then I read It's in His Kiss by Julia Quinn, which is book 7 in the Bridgerton series following Hyacinth's story. I honestly thought this was one of the better books in the series. I love the banter between the two main characters. I love Hyacinth, I love Gareth, I love their personalities. I thought it was really well done. The ending I feel like could have had a little bit more of an angsty vibe, but I feel like it didn't really take away from the story. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read this very short horror novella called Map of the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones. Horror is not really my genre, so I feel like I can't really fairly rate it because I didn't end up enjoying this book, but I can see horror fans would. So don't take my word for it. I gave it 2 stars. And I finished the month off with The God and the Gumiho by Sophie Kim, and I really enjoyed the story. This is a fantasy romance with like Korean mythology. I love the morally gray main characters. I love the cat and mouse chase that this book has. I'm really excited to read the second book once I get my hands on it. This book was 4.5 stars.